Hi, this is Mrs. Wiederholt. Welcome to my lesson video on the quadratic formula. Now let's get started. First, let's do a little background. The quadratic formula is just that. It's a formula. So what is a formula? It is very simply a method for doing something. So what other formulas do you know? For example, there's the slope formula, axis of symmetry, the distance formula, etc. You can pause the video here if you would like to think of other formulas that you know and use. So what is the purpose of the quadratic formula? Well, its purpose is to solve quadratic equations. Now you might already know how to solve a quadratic equation by graphing and by factoring and even completing the square. So this is just another method to solve quadratic equations. The quadratic formula might seem a little long to use, but one good thing about it is that it works with every quadratic equation. Factoring is usually the method of choice, but some quadratic equations are unfactorable, and that's when you have to move to completing the square using that method or using the quadratic formula. So let's get started on learning how to use the quadratic formula. At the top of this screen is the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. All of this is divided by 2 times a. So let's use the quadratic formula with example 1. We have 10x squared plus 11x minus 6 equals 0. The first thing you want to do is identify your a, b, and c values. So our a value is 10, our b value is 11, and our c value is negative 6. We are now going to use these three values and substitute them for the letter, the variable, in the quadratic formula. So here we go. We have x equals negative b. So that's going to be the negative of 11. Now if our b value had been negative 11, we would have to write the negative of negative 11. So we have to be very careful about that we substitute that accurately. Next, we're going to say plus or minus the square root of b squared. Well, in this example, our b value is 11, so that's going to be 11 squared, minus 4 times a, our a value is 10, times c, and our c value is negative 6. And we will be dividing this by 2 times a, which is 2 times 10. Now we can start to simplify this. So I've got x equals negative 11 plus or minus the square root. Now 11 squared minus 4 times 10 times negative 6 is 361. And we will divide this by 20. Now we can continue to simplify this. We have negative 11 plus or minus. Now what is the square root of 361? It happens to be 19. So we have negative 11 plus or minus 19 divided by 20. Now remember, this plus or minus says that, or tells us that we are going to have two solutions. Now we just have another step or two to do. So we've got x equals negative 11 plus 19 divided by 20. If you notice, at this point I'm breaking this apart so that we can see our two solutions. Negative 11 plus 19 divided by 20 is 2/5. And now for my other solution for x, That is going to be negative 11 minus 19 divided by 20. And that answer is negative 3/2. Now let's go ahead and try another example. In this example, we're going to use the equation x squared minus 4x equals negative 13. Now the first thing I notice is that this equation is not in standard form. I need to add 13 to both sides so that I get it in standard form. Now that we've done that, let's identify our A, B, and C values. So our A value is 1, our B value is negative 4, and our C value is 13. Now let's start substituting these numbers into our quadratic formula. So I have x equals the negative of negative 4. Now, do you see how our B value is negative 4? And since the quadratic formula says that you have to take the negative of B, we're taking the negative of negative 4. Now, we will simplify that when we get to the next step. So we have the negative of negative 4 plus or minus the square root of B squared, well that will be negative 4 squared, minus 4 times A, so that's 4 times 1, times C. And our C value is 13. And then all of this is divided by 2 times A, and since A is 1, it's 2 times 1. Now we can start to simplify this. So we have x equals, now the negative of negative 4 is positive 4. So we have x equals 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 36. Now I said negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 13, and that's what I got, negative 36. We're going to divide this by 2, because 2 times 1 is 2. Now we can continue to simplify this. I have 4 plus or minus, and I see that I have the square root of negative 36. Well, the negative tells me that I'm going to have an imaginary root, and then 36 is a perfect square, so I will be able to take the square root of that. So the square root of negative 36 is going to be 6i. And I will divide that by 2. We are getting close to the end now. We just have a little more simplifying to do. I have 4 as a numerator. I have 4 and the denominator is 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I can simplify that. Also, I have 6 in my numerator. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I can simplify that. And it will be 2 plus or minus 3i. So these are my solutions right here. And yes, I do have 2 solutions. One of my solutions for x is 2 plus 3i. My second solution for x is 2 minus 3i. If you were to graph this on your calculator, it would look something like this. Now this is just a sketch, but the point I'm trying to make is that when you have an imaginary root like this, your parabola will not touch the x-axis. Now I hope this lesson video on the quadratic formula has helped you, and the video that's going to go along with this will be titled The Discriminant, and we'll be talking about that next, so please watch that video also. So I look forward to working with you again. Bye-bye.